Coming to you from a basement in Colorado, these two childhood best friends try to expand their horizons by experiencing the best in art, music, movies, literature, and experiences. These cultural pearls might get trampled in the process, but at least the pigs are going to be happy. This is the Swine Before Pearls podcast with Joel and Trent.
Hello and welcome back to the Swine Before Pearls podcast, the podcast where we go before the greatest pearls of all time, the best media, the best books, the best everything.
We trample it.
We trample it. Do not throw your pearls before swine lest they trample them. Instead, let the swine seek out the pearls so that they can trample them on their own accord.
Boy, we're about to trample some pearls out here.
Oh gosh, no, we do not. We want to be careful how we talk about this because this is a very
it's sensitive, but
we're talking about what's going on.
Yeah,
really a cultural touchstone, a cry for revolution, if you will. It deals with drug usage and crying sometimes when you're lying in bed just to get it out.
Why'd you look at me when you said both those things?
I don't know. But yeah, okay. That was I was talking about the 1x4 non-blondes, but we're actually talking about Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On," which does have similar themes. Interestingly enough.
Oh, I see. I know the words to the 4 Non-Blonde song, but I mean, I don't know the similarities between the two.
Well, it's about protest and being upset with the status quo.
Yeah. And I wake up in the morning and I step outside and take a deep breath and I get real high. Yeah.
Okay. And I scream from the top of my lungs, "What's going on?" Where Marvin Gaye asks rather nicely, "What's going on?"
Yeah. That I never really thought about that because we kind of joked about that a little bit before we started the topic reading into the podcast, and we were joking about the 4 Non-Blonde song, and now that you're saying it in front of me, I'm like, actually there are a few similarities there.
Yeah, that we're already swine, just like, hey, that song is just like,
remember that
the meme.
Remember He-Man?
This is an important album that deals with serious topics.
Yeah.
And all I can think of is memes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird first listen. It's definitely not like something to put on your driving playlist for 24/7 like you did.
Oh, that was rough. That was rough.
How did that go for you?
Yeah, so because we talked about for a whole week it'll be just listen to this album. That was like kind of our premise, was we'll dive into an album for a whole week. And I think that meant something very different for you than it did for me, because I listened to music on my commute and I was helping Steven move. Steven's our producer, by the way.
Thank you, Steven, for giving us all the things we need to actually do this.
So I listened to the album probably 5 times in a day, just driving back and forth between Steven's house and my house and just helping him with the move. And it kind of drove me insane. Just hearing this album over and over again, which is not no disrespect to the album. But I was definitely at the point where, I didn't speak this musical language.
Yeah.
And I really grew to appreciate the album.
Yeah.
But only after I really dove into it, and I needed to actually understand it before just diving in as heavily as I did.
Oh man. And mad respect to you for committing to that, because I think I like to set very lofty goals of oh yeah, let's just listen to this nonstop and this will be the only thing we listen to. But I listen to probably 3 songs a day, and it's so you were pretty balls deep in it, and I was I don't want to take any choo-choo out of your train right now, but I could tell that was starting to take a little bit of a mental effect.
It was rough. I'm I'm just adjusting to this album, right? And I'm
Yeah.
just like, it's one thing when it's like, this is my first listen to it, and
Yeah.
I'm not quite adjusted. It usually takes me a couple of adjustments to listen to an album, but I'm just listening to this for the first time.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in traffic. It's like stop and go traffic. And I'm just pissed.
Save the children. You know,
Like we're crapping on this album.
No. We're
like,
not crapping on it.
it-
Like it I do want to make clear to the audience that this is a good piece of art, a good piece of work. It's
there's a reason why it's listed by Rolling Stones as the best album ever written. There's a lot of content. There's a lot of meat to it.
yeah.
At the same time, I did not speak that musical language. Again, I was diving headfirst into something that I had no context for.
Yeah, and I mean, it is psychedelic Motown, it's all these styles mashed up, and for you, if you're used to listening to music from the 90s or the early 2000s, or maybe some of the more mainstream stuff from the 70s, kind of having that suddenly into your musical palette is like, being a newborn baby and having steak tartare for the first time. It's raw meat and you don't really know what to do with it, and you're a baby.
And that's exactly what it was. I just wasn't ready for the sounds that were on this album.
Yeah.
Like I like a lot of this stuff in small doses, or at least I did before, where like the first song, What's Going On, I heard that, oh, this is like that intro music on Bob Ross.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is kind of a nice little groove. But as it goes on, like I developed kind of an ASMR spine tingle, where like people like ASMR for that spine tingle. I don't. I really don't. It makes me uncomfortable. I was listening to this in the car and I just felt trapped. Like I'm stuck with this ASMR spine tingle and I'm just trying to get home.
Well, it's good to know that you're not a weirdo that, watches those at 9 p.m. every night.
Oh, that's pretty specific, Bill. You got some stories?
No. I've shown you a few videos that I've watched in the ASMR channel.
That Chick-fil-A girl, she was opening the sauces. Was that an ironic watch for you?
It's I joke about these things that it's like, oh yeah, this is all irony. But what's funny that you bring that up, because I was in Chick-fil-A drive-through this morning, and what I was thinking about? I was thinking about that ASMR.
Oh gosh.
Because I was just like, man, I wonder if the guy just like whispered through the, the little microphone they use at the drive-through, my pleasure, and then just tapped on the chicken a little bit before he served me. Okay,
Let's actually talk about
let's dive in.
the album itself.
Look at these pearls we are trampling.
Yeah. What really started my appreciation for this album was when I actually listened, or when I looked up the lyrics.
Yeah.
And like looked up some analysis for it. Because there are like meaningful things. And this was like a time machine for me. Like, let's go back to the time of the Vietnam War. Let's see what it's like for Black people as they experience this, incredibly chaotic and troubling time.
Yeah. No, the 70s were a really weird transition point for America. Like, there was so much stuff going on. You had, different groups of people starting to pop up in ways that they were never there before. Like, oh, all of a sudden we have these veterans who are coming home and they aren't, praised like they were in World War II. And, now we have all these like ethnic groups in America that are speaking their voices, and it's being heard. And there's all this division. And something I noticed about it is like, it's like a cry for help in his era, but it's so bleak. He's like trying to figure out, like, is it gonna get better? Is it gonna get better? And I was like, when I was kind of fleshing that together, I kind of sat there and I was like, well, did it did it get better? Like, if Marvin Gaye was still around, like, would he write the same song today that he wrote now? Like, and that was an interesting question that kind of popped up for me.
I mean, yeah, I think you're specifically like referring to the line, "Are things getting better?" Like the newspaper said,
Yeah,
which now you look at the news and they're not even trying to tell you that things are getting better. Although that is also how they get the clicks.
they gotta make that sweet, sweet click money.
Got to let people know that things are going better.
Pay
But
click
I
marketers.
mean, to be fair, I mean, we're just like we just experienced like a worldwide lockdown
Yeah,
for a global pandemic. So
right about that one, Marvin.
yeah, where's Marvin now? Yeah, but gosh, trying to think, just because like this album really got to me in terms of thinking about the Vietnam War.
Yeah,
Because I remember growing up, I'd hear about all these wars and think to myself, like, there's nothing really stopping my future self from ending up getting drafted in a war. It's like entirely out of my control.
yeah,
And that was like a fear for me growing up. And these guys who got sent to Vietnam lived that.
mm,
Um, and there was like this cynicism both in and out of the war,
yeah,
where we ended up backing out, and the American people were like, we shouldn't have participated in this war,
yeah,
and you push that off on the people who were sent to go fight in it,
yeah,
and so they're receiving all of the blame for something that they probably don't feel strongly about themselves.
mm,
And war is hell.
yeah,
Like what's happening, brother says.
yeah. And it's kind of crazy that you kind of mentioned that national shame that America kind of has a little bit when it comes to the Vietnam War, because I was in Vietnam, not in the war, obviously,
Back in
as a
Nam.
cheeky tourist wearing a floral shirt, but I was in Vietnam for like 2 weeks, and I was driving a moped up and down the coast with my girlfriend at the time. And, it was surreal to see all this American, like, tanks, artillery that just got abandoned. Like, they just abandoned all of that stuff there. And it's almost like paraded around as like a trophy. And we went to this museum, like Vietnam War museum, and they had pictures of like GIs that they had captured and killed, and it was like in a celebration of them, of the Viet Cong winning the war. And it was like, wow, this is wild, because like when we've grown up in America, it's like we're the good guys, we always win, we always do the right thing. That's kind of what you think for a while, and then you get there and you're like, man, I felt like deep emotional, like feelings when I was in those museums and looking at those pictures of like Americans my age in this war, who now their photo is used as a propaganda piece. And it was like, if I feel this way now, not even like being directly tied to it, I can't even imagine what it was like back then, in the thick of it, when that was the national conversation, the world conversation. And you had these guys going over there and coming back super messed up and not knowing how to deal with society in America. And when I think about songs, and I think about like Vietnam War songs, like you have like your classic movie like helicopter music of like, oh, we're going in and we're gonna do some cool stuff and we're gonna fight a war. But you never get that. Like, I think like this is pretty unique, because I don't think I've ever, in my experience, I haven't heard music before that's like touched upon that topic the way that this album has. And The way, yeah. So
It's critical of the war, but it's also sensitive to the people who fought it, especially like since his own brother
yeah,
fought in the war. That definitely changes your perspective.
yeah, no, yeah. That was something that was cool to look up with research, was like, oh, his brother was in this. He's not just some dude who, wasn't, didn't have any actual emotional or real connection to it. It's like, man, your family's over there. And, that song's pretty much written for his brother, but also the brothers of the nation.
And I think there's a certain tragedy in that song, "What's Happening, Brother." Like, I don't know if this is the intent of the line, but the song is written from his brother's perspective, and his brother asks, are they still getting down where we used to go? Like, are they still dancing like at the same spot we used to dance? And like, I remember coming back from college, it was very difficult, just seeing how all my friends had kind of lived their own lives without me, and I missed out on seeing that. I missed out on that friendship, and to come back, it wasn't me going and finding myself at college. It was the government said, "Hey, you guys are gonna go fight in a war for us, and you don't really have a choice. And now that you're back, you've missed out on all these things.
Yeah.
And you've lost that life. You lost that life that you used to have, that enjoyment you used to have with your friends."
Yeah. And just even like culturally, like the 70s were such a weird time for culture. Like everyone's growing their hair out. And he like mentions growing hair out in a couple of these songs, but everyone's like growing their hair out super long. Everyone's wearing these super weird print. Like that must have felt alien.
Oh yeah.
Like
it's a huge cultural change, and coming back from that, when you've been living in a completely different world,
yeah.
That's earth shattering.
It kind of reminds me of like Forrest Gump. Have you seen
No, I
Forrest
haven't
Gump?
seen
Oh
Forrest Gump.
shoot.
Hopefully that'll come up in
Well,
one of our movies.
that'll probably come up on the movies. But there was a point where he grows up in a small town in Alabama. He comes back from the war, and then they throw him up on this podium to speak. And it's just this kind of surreal shot because he's in all this military uniform. He's been in the war for I don't know how many years. He's surrounded by all these hippies. And it's just like he looks just like a complete stranger. I have no idea what's going on here culturally.
And another song that really touches on this, and I think this is a song that if you don't know what's going on, it sounds really stupid, is "Save the Children." Because you listen to that first and you're like, what does that even mean, save the children? Like just the wording on it, kind of silly and cheesy.
Yeah.
But you actually start thinking about it, and like as I got later and like appreciated the album more, it became one of the songs that kind of stuck with me more, because he's just like screaming, "Save the children, save the babies." And it's like he's not talking about like literal babies, but these young kids. Like, I'm only 24, like
That's it.
but you go back 6 years for me, 18 years old. You think, man, was I prepared for a war at 18 years old?
Nah, dude,
No.
you're a baby.
No, I was a little baby. I had so much maturing and growing up to do, and I still at 24 years old do not feel ready to go to
We're
war.
still babies.
It makes me kind of angry. Like, if I think back to that time of, if I'm seeing these 18-year-old kids get sent off to a war, that's like we're forcing our ways onto this other country.
Yeah.
That's really sickening. And you're killing the young men of that other nation too.
Yeah. Yeah, he's saying save the kids from the turmoil coming in the nation.
Yeah.
And boy, would he have been disappointed to see now that the babies are on TikTok doing dances.
Oh no. But where was I going? I had a really good
Nah,
point.
that's
Oh,
okay.
yeah. But Yeah, here's where I really jive with this song is he says, but who really cares? Um, who's willing to try?
Yeah.
Um, like we live in a world that's destined to die, and we can't stop living.
Yeah.
Like he's including himself in the mess of just like we're doing our own things. You know, we we're sending other people to fight our wars, but we're just doing our own thing. It's not actually our problem.
Yeah. And boy, does he hit that note on Destined to Die, because that sounds like some nice, 1950s Frank Sinatra club music right there when he hits that. I was like, yeah, this has some chops. I mean, and it's just it's such a structured album. It's going in and out of just these different perspectives. I think I think like the crazy thing for me was flying high in friendly skies, because he's like zooming in and out of all these different cultural events. And I think a very important cultural event in the 1970s was, obviously the use of psychedelics. And people were just kind of starting to be more free with drug use, all this other stuff. So, he's watching all this stuff happen, but he's actively participating in this cultural revolution because he's super high.
Yeah.
And but I think that song is a double-edged sword, flying high in friendly skies. Um, you know, Marvin Gaye, from what I was looking up about him, he's dealing with a lot of stuff. He didn't have a great home life. His brother's overseas, and he starts using marijuana, which is, whatever you want to say about that, kind of gets into it. And then he starts going to harder stuff. And it's funny because that term friendly skies was like a common airline term.
It's the Frontier airline.
Yeah, it's like a campaign slogan that's saying, "Hey, you're gonna fly high in the friendly skies," but it's like I said, it's a double-edged sword, because it's an advertisement, and advertisements are kind of false promises sometimes,
Ooh,
and
that's a good point. I
and
really like that.
just with the same way with drugs are false promises, because it's like, hey, you're gonna fly high up in these friendly skies, but then he like talks about um you know coming down, and he says, oh Lord, self-destruction is in my hand, oh Lord, so stupid minded, oh, and I go crazy, I can't find it. Well, I know I'm hooked, my friends, to the boy who makes slaves out of men.
And
Crazy.
you can see in that song that like the whole vibe of the song, if you don't think about it critically, it sounds kind of positive. It's like
That's what I thought when I
we're
first heard
we're
it.
just floating through. We're enjoying the high,
Yeah.
right? But and I think that's the reality of it is, you look deeper into drug addiction. I mean, there's a reason why people do get high. It's great while you're high, but then if you're stuck in these habits of drug abuse, like there's that little subtext there. Like once this is over, once you land,
Yeah.
you've got hell to pay.
Yeah, there's always a come down, and nothing ever really changes, and then the jaws press down harder on you the more you go up, and you're paying a higher price. And I think that just adds so much more interesting context, not only to his life, but this album in the way it flows, because, he goes for like talking about war, talking about this, talking about that. And then he's like sitting in his chair on what he's doing right now. And ultimately, all that stuff kind of catches up to him in his life as well, which is, tragic. Um,
And I think what really sets this album apart is that Marvin Gaye isn't like sitting on his high horse saying like, you guys suck, everybody sucks.
Yeah, the world's dying.
Yeah, it's, there's a whole lot of crap here, but he's also honest with the audience, and he says, here's my drug addiction problem. I'm not doing enough to help here.
Yeah.
So he's addressing societal problems and acknowledging that he is part of the problem.
Yeah, it turns super introspective.
Yeah, it's a very mature approach, where I think the common approach, especially these days, and it feels almost hypocritical the way I'm talking about it.
Be a hypocrite.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people who just like point their fingers at the world and say like, you're a problem and you're a problem, and in reality, we all probably contribute to the problems of the world, and we need to be honest with ourselves.
How could you fix the world if your room is messy?
Oh gosh.
Clean your room first, then clean the world around you. Yeah, Kermit the Frog said that one time too. So he's a great philosopher. You guys should probably check him out as well. I think another one that really hit me is "God Is Love."
This is actually probably my favorite song on the album.
Yeah, this one hit me a lot, and I think we could probably speak to it, from a good personal perspective, and also probably speak to the context of the lyrics as well in this one.
Yeah. So just for context, we are both Christians, and I think
I'm trying my best.
Yeah. But this song is really meaningful to me.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Christian music is pretty empty, and dealing with religious themes. Like it's just like, I'm experiencing minor problems, but God came to help.
Yeah.
So thank you. But this song, I think, is much more meaningful, where, especially in the context of the whole album, it's like he's bringing up all these problems, and then he says like, hey, like, there's a clear good way to live, right? Where God gave us a beautiful world, and all he asks of us is we give each other love.
Yeah.
Right. So you look at all the problems he addresses. The Vietnam War. If we loved our neighbors, if we loved the people who live in Vietnam, if we loved the young boys who we're sending to war, would we really be handling the situation in this way? Would we really be fighting this war? Is that a like God loving attitude? If we destroy our environment, is that how we honor God?
Yeah.
He's dealing with real issues and saying, like, especially back in the day, we kind of think of as more of a religious time, but you have all these issues, and you say, are they really like following the commandment to love your neighbor as yourself?
Yeah. I think the big one for me is, so Marvin is talking about God as a father, and if you like dig into his background, Marvin Gaye ultimately got shot by his father and got killed by his father.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So that's a really interesting tidbit to this one in particular. So that really changed the way I kind of looked at that song, and it just adds more meat to that this album in general. Just to know facts like that, to know things that were going on in his life, despite all the world events.
And once again, that makes it much more personal, right?
Yeah, makes it super personal.
He's talking about all these family structures. He's talking about like, love your father, love your mother, love your sister, love your brother. All of that stuff is like much more personal when you look at his toxic family relationships.
Yeah.
And so that's a really powerful insight you've brought in there.
That's just goes to show that we need to be reading more lyrics behind our music, because I think it changes the way we view music.
Yeah.
So we need to go through some of our old Bible
Well-
Bible songs
Oh.
and start looking for more meaning, because who knows what was going behind Jesus loves me? Who knows? But a really good song that I liked a lot was definitely Mercy, Mercy Me.
Yeah.
Or as I call it, the Deep Ecology song.
Well, you're pretty close because it's parentheses the ecology.
I know, but I call it the Deep Ecology.
Oh, the deep ecology song.
Yeah.
All right, explain why is it specifically the deep ecology song?
So Deep Ecology is essentially, it's more of a meme for me, just because there's a certain man who, may or may not have mailed some certain packages.
You always bring this guy up.
And he's in a Colorado prison right now. No. I just call it the Deep Ecology song because I think it's funny.
Okay. Yeah, go. Marvin takes on a lot of different themes and a lot of different political views, and now he's taking on anarcho-primitivism.
Narco-primitivism. Well, what's funny about this song, or not funny, but what's interesting about this song is like the climate crisis, or just talking about nature conservation in general, was not a very mainstream topic in the 1970s.
Yeah, I think I don't know, just because I was so young at the time, but I remember
70s.
like as a grade schooler, I definitely felt like the conversations about like going green and environmentally responsible products were kind of a newer thing.
Yeah.
Like I remember that was like a big marketing push.
And it's still a big marketing push. I don't know if it has as much steam as it did in like the early 2000s, kind of when we were coming up, and it's kind of found its own little subculture now. So it's kind of in its own subculture, and sometimes it enters the national conversation. But I mean, back in the 1970s, like it's like drill baby drill, let's drive cars, all this other stuff is going on that nobody cares about, that there's a little bit of smog over the city, or maybe that the oceans aren't as clean as they used to be. That was not on anybody's mind. And it's like Marvin Gaye's like, he's really at this point where he's becoming incredibly introspective about everything going on in the world, including environment.
I mean, even by the title, you can tell that he's deeply bothered by this. Like this isn't a song called "This is a growing and pressing concern that needs addressed." This is like mercy, mercy me, like oh mercy. Like,
I have a few concerns.
This is like, hey, this is disastrous.
Yeah.
Like, no, like these large corporations don't care what they're doing. Let's spill oil in the ocean. We've got fish full of mercury. Yeah, but like if we did anything about that, it'd affect our bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
But
and now we have an incredibly large consumption of mercury because of all the fish we eat, and especially in Japan, where they eat a ton of fish.
Yeah.
And
fish full of mercury leads to people full of mercury, it turns out.
Yeah, and I don't think people are thermometers, and we're meant to have a ton of mercury in them to show what the temperature is outside. So it's not a good thing. But it's just, I wonder where he was writing this song from. Was he in? Remember when we went to LA? Like,
oh yeah,
and how just smoggy it was the entire time. It was so smoggy, and we would drive around, and we were even at this like really nice place we were staying on a rooftop that you could see out over the city, and it was like, wow, this is nice. And then it's just like, whoosh.
Yeah. Well, you see, global warming is a big old hoax, so we actually don't have to do anything about any environmental issues whatsoever.
Wow.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Getting contemporary.
Trent's being sarcastic,
Yeah.
I think, if you
Yeah, I
can
am.
tell.
But
But I
yeah.
wonder where he was writing this from. Like he was probably in California. He was probably in California, like writing this.
That
and
would
watching
make
this.
sense. Yeah. I mean, somewhere where like it's very prevalent to see.
And if I can get like kind of real for a second, nature is probably one of our greatest assets to mental health.
Oh, absolutely.
And Marvin Gaye, he's being, like I said, very introspective. We've already covered that he's looking at the issues of the world, but you can tell this is like crushing his soul.
Yeah.
Like there's not a ton of hope in this album, and this is a guy who's doing, tons of drugs to escape. He's got all this stuff going on with his home life, everything. And the man can't even go outside and enjoy just like pure nature.
And that is something that is kind of hard to deal with. You think like you go into areas where it is pure nature. We're very fortunate to live in Colorado and have the mountains like right nearby. But
Buffs.
what's that?
I said Sco Buffs.
Oh gosh. You don't even care about the Buffs.
No, I don't.
No. But we're losing like, if we don't steward our resources correctly, then we'll run out of all of these beautiful things.
Mm-hmm.
And it did kind of bother me. Like I like to just take walks on local trails, and like it does like kind of seep into my mind as I'm walking them, like this is pretty, but I'm missing out on what this could be because all of this housing is built around me, and that's very necessary. Like people have to live in places,
Yeah.
but at the same time we're losing something in order to gain that. And sometimes it's not even necessary that we lose all this. It's just
I wonder in the future, are we just gonna have like some like ecosphere, like not even like a national park, just an ecosphere where there's just gonna be plant life and animal life, and it all lives there, and it's all around this huge city development, but it's just this big park, and that's all you get.
Yeah.
And it's like
100.
It's like maybe 1,000 acres.
What are those called? Like, what's the place we visited in San Francisco?
Like a botanical garden.
Yeah, like all we
That
have
was a
left is
really
botanical
perfect
gardens.
example though, because I was enjoying my time at the botanical gardens, but at the same time we were in San Francisco. It felt off to me.
Yeah.
It felt like I wasn't truly able to appreciate, oh man, this plant is from Australia and it's so wild and so cool.
It was man-made nature.
Yeah, it was like I want to go to Australia and actually see that plant. And I think there's studies done that says touching grass, touching dirt is good for your serotonin levels. It's good for your body, it's good for your mind. So the fact that this guy is seeing all this stuff, can't even get a breakout in nature, is just despairing, and I've felt that myself. I went on this giant hike. I was having a great time. I was out in nature the entire time, trekking over 100 miles. And one night I had to camp in a burn scar that was, it wasn't a natural burn scar, like a natural forest fire. It was an arson that was done. So I have to camp in these dead trees, all this pollution. I kind of screwed myself over. I didn't plan out my trip as well as I thought I did, but I was very depressed that night. I was so depressed that night because I was there to escape out in nature. And even in this great, vast, pure space, I had to live in like the man-made decisions, so it's so hard to escape from. And I think it's amazing that he's touching on this at such a time that wasn't even thought about.
Yeah, he was really ahead of his time.
He was ahead of his time. And he had a ton of mercury poisoning, probably.
Yeah.
We all have a ton of mercury poisoning.
I don't even know if
My brother needs to stop feeding me tuna every night.
That's
slow.
That's what's
Guys,
killing
my
you.
producer is slowly trying to kill me with mercury poisoning because he can't stop making sushi.
But anyway, you know what song I really like in this album? And it's for one word. All right. It's makes me want to holla. And the reason I like it is just because I really like the word holler. It's it's so meaningful. Like and you know, you say it, I mean, if I say it, it's always going to sound silly coming out of my mouth. But you know, it as like a capstone to the album, it covers all of the themes very well, where like all of these issues are going on, and it does make you want to scream. Like you look at everything going on, and you know, there's personal issues. It's not watch the news and watch all this garbage happen. It's like, I'm dealing with economic crises in my own situation. You know, and you know, crime is increasing, you know, trigger happy policing. All of these like extreme things are happening that, you know, I'm sure are personal to him, and also at the same time larger issues.
Do you feel that right now in our current year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
right, then let's do what the song says. Get up.
Oh.
Get on the corner of the room.
Okay. All right.
Dude,
you ready?
Dude, do you feel bad? Do you feel bad about our oceans being polluted?
It makes me want to holla!
Yeah, it makes me want to holla.
That was...
I'm just doing this to screw our producer, but do it again. Holla.
Ah!
There we go. Ah!
Thank you, Steven.
That felt good.
Yeah.
No. Holla, dude.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of upsetting stuff going on, and you know, you look at the complicated balance of things, where, you know, I think economically this has been a rough year.
Oh yeah, dude.
You know, COVID wise, this has been a rough year. Like, you know, it was tough going outside. It was tough staying inside. There was.
And jobs too, man. Jobs have been super weird just because there's always like, oh, everybody's looking to hire right now. Everybody needs to hire right now. There's so many jobs, and then you apply for like 50 of them and maybe 2 come back. And it's not because we're incompetent. You know, it's just this weird economic time. So, you know, next time you're sending job interviews, just go out and scream into the pollution, I guess.
Yeah.
But
and I don't even know where I was going, but I mean, it's just been such a mess. I talked briefly last week about my stint as an insurance salesman, but basically I did a week and a half of cold calling, and then I shadowed this other insurance salesman, and it was just this miserable, awkward experience as we drove around the city, and I watched as he tried to go to different businesses, and he said, oh, this business I wanted to go to is closed. This business I wanted to go to is closed. This business I wanted to go to is closed. So I'm going through this hellscape of dealing with the fear I have of cold sales. Meanwhile, I look around the city and it's a mess.
Yeah.
You know, economically, we just got absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
And it's super frustrating.
I have a random question for you.
Yeah.
What was the insurance salesman like that you were shadowing?
Oh, he was an
dead
interesting
inside?
fellow. Oh no, he was an interesting fellow. Where like he wasn't like a normal guy socially. Like he had this like certain likability to him, but it was also like the sort of likability where it's like the protagonist of a movie about nerds, you know? Where he's just like kind of a socially awkward guy, and you can tell he's got like a good heart, But like I call him on Zoom and he's like just hanging out with his rat. He's got like he's like this pasty guy with kind of a whiny voice.
He had a rat?
He had a rat. Hey, be nice. He might listen someday. Yeah. But yeah. But it was great because, you know, he suffered through that job
Yeah.
and
I bet he
came
did.
out the other side kind of a king. He was like a top performer in the company. He said like there's no other opportunity that would get me this much money.
Yeah.
And he was thriving. And I was able to look at him and say, that's great for him. I think I can find another way in life. I do not want to do this.
It's like, hey man, I'm not really looking to buy Super Mario costumes for my rat and spend my money doing
Yeah.
that. Oh man, what a bummer.
Yeah, gosh. So he was a super nice guy. Like after he did that tour with me, I quit. And then he texted me the next day like, hey, we're gonna go and just kill these clients with kindness. And I have this super like cool strategy planned out. And I was like, hey man, I actually just quit. And he was like, okay, I understand.
Oh no, you let Ratman down.
I let Ratman down. He was so nice.
No.
He spent the whole day showing me around, and I was just kind of like, yeah, I hate this. Oh gosh.
Oh man, I'm happy I asked that question.
Yeah.
You never
Gosh.
really told me about the insurance, because I remember like jobs were tough to come by, and I remember when you said you were going to insurance, I was like, okay, you try this out. It's probably not going to be,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't want to be rude about it, but I knew that was just going to be such a weird world to sink your teeth
And
into.
I am not built to sell things to people,
Yeah.
so it really just didn't work for me.
Well, you sold me friendship, so
That's
you
right.
did
Well,
pretty
no,
good.
I just offered it to you.
Yeah,
But-
we'll have to tell the story of how we met sometime.
Someday.
That'll be
But-
another good anecdote at some point.
For now, let's start the wrap up process.
Yeah,
This is
reel it back
considered
in.
one of the greatest albums of all time. How did it make you better?
How did it make me better? I think this one made me better because it not only taught me that I need to dig into the meat of albums sometimes and actually look, because I appreciate it. You know, when I
Yeah.
first, I'm not gonna lie, you know, I'm not gonna be a saint here. I don't really care if
You're
if
a swine.
I'm a swine, and as a swine does, I kind of scoffed when we first listened to it in the car.
I remember that. Yeah.
You know, I think you always come to things with an honest heart, and I think I came into it and I was like, dude, this is gonna be a little bit wacky. We'll see how it goes. I'll give it a shot, and I think getting into it, it made me appreciate this album a lot more. But it also reminds me that while, you know, we need to be aware of things going on in our world, but I think that much despair constantly can also twist and coil you. Like I don't think Marvin Gaye constantly going into these problems was his solution going out. Like he was identifying things, but you know, he kind of kept going on his way at the end of the day. And I think it just goes to show that there's only so much introspectiveness that you can have before it becomes just negativity. And I think it's this constant balance that we have to start to develop of awareness, sorrow, sadness, but also looking for a way out and a way to make things better the way we can do it, you know, in our own simple ways. And I think this album taught me a lot. It's considered the greatest album of all time. I don't think it's my greatest album of all time, but I do think that I understand why people think that, you know, why people would put this up as it. So,
Yeah, and this album really was kind of what I was looking for in terms of broadening my scope, because that was kind of the goal of this podcast for me, where I wanted to approach media that was out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And this was deep out of my comfort zone, and I sought it out. I chased it out, and I came out appreciating it a lot. It was kind of a time machine for me, where I could go back in time and get angry and say, like, why are they sending these children off to war?
Yeah.
It's just like so upsetting that like these young men died so pointlessly fighting for something that a lot of them probably didn't even believe in anymore. And it's just such a mess. And it gave me just a wider perspective and appreciation, and I was able to live history and experience someone else's like actual political experience. This isn't theoretical politics. This isn't saying a quick zinger that will decimate the other side. This is Marvin Gaye's reality, and it was dealing with real issues. He was dealing with real issues, and experiencing actual emotion and personal problems, and that's real.
Yeah,
and it's history, but it's also relevant to today, and it was incredibly meaningful to me and expanded my perspective, as well as opening me up to new music as well. This is not something that I will throw on my regular playlist.
Yeah,
but I am glad that like my world has opened up.
Yeah, no, I feel like you got a lot from it.
Yeah.
So that's really cool to see. Yeah, guys, this has been Swine Before Pearls, where we make stuff up as we go and figure it out.
All right. So let's talk about our schedule real quick before we go.
Yeah, we'll talk about our schedule.
Yeah, because if you want to keep up, we're gonna be
continuing to butcher great works of art.
So next week we're gonna read Catcher in the Rye.
Oh God.
Oh boy, Joel. You gotta save your opinions for later.
Reading isn't good. JoJo's doing audiobook because JoJo don't read book words bad good.
Okay. So then after that, we're going to do our In the Field episode, so you can't follow along with us, unfortunately.
I mean, I can send you a location and you
don't dox us.
I can give you our full
okay.
credit history and social security number. Yeah.
So then after that, we're watching The Godfather, and we're going to be listening. What are we listening to? You wrote it down.
I did. We'll be listening to something.
I think it's the number 2 album.
Oh, I think is it the Rolling Stones?
No, it's the number 2 album on the Rolling Stones Top 500 list.
No, but I think it might be like legit the Rolling Stones.
Well,
that's a little narcissistic. Put yourself up there at number 2.
If you want to know the album that we're going over, it'll be the number 2 Rolling Stones,
and
Top 500
we'll probably
album.
mention it up on our next episode. That should give
we'll
you
look it up beforehand.
Plenty of time to go through that great piece of work that we are most likely going to trample all over.
Yeah. Watch us forget it.
Hey,
I'm actually probably going to start listening to it this week.
We're humans. Yeah, Trent's going to have it on repeat in his car until he hates it.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to it probably 3 times through and be like, yeah, that was good. I got what I needed from that.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm sure Joel does too.
Hey, and if you're on this roller coaster with us early enough, you're an OG fan. I'm gonna bring back Rat Boy at some point, and
bring Rat Boy on the podcast.
When we're on Time Magazine, and we're just rolling in money and debauchery. One of you nerds is gonna come up in your Sonic the Hedgehog t-shirt, and you're gonna say, "Rat Boy, I got a Rat Boy tattoo," and I'm gonna look at you and be. Say, what is that? So this has been Swine Before Pearls. I'm Joel. That's Trent. We love you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Swine Before Pearls podcast. Our executive producers have been Joel Kennicott, Trent Grauman, and Stephen Kennicott. Music is by Twizzled and used with permission. For more podcast information and for more episodes, please go to podcast.swinebeforepearls.com.